доклад по вайп-кодингу. Ну, короче, всем привет на мой...
And indeed, it's a vibe coding presentation. So welcome to my Let's Play about vibe coding. We will be developing a Burp Suite plugin without using our hands. So imagine that you're learning something, and you then see so many metrics and stats, and they've got no impact on the stats. So I am Maxim Bulgakov. You must have heard all this already. So I'm a pen tester of everything in Byzone. I made a presentation at Offzone last year talking about RAG attacks, and I even survived CPETS, which is a pen tester certification. So what is this presentation about, and why you may potentially care about it? So imagine you've got a long to-do list of projects and you don't have the time, or you've tried vibe coding, but you've been bullied first by LLM and then by your colleagues. And finally, maybe you have an idea of a great fork, so you clone a repo, and you see this huge amount of code, you don't know what to do. So I'm going to show just one demo, a vibe coding masterclass, then 3 tactics on being a great vibe coder, and I'll give you, 5 commandments on how to be a great vibe coder, because vibe coders today look very cringy, like you want to fire them the moment you see them. But it doesn't have to be this way, so let's start with a live demo.
Так, сейчас надо кое-что подготовить.
I'm sorry, I gotta prepare something.
Вот, значит, сегодня вайп-кодить мы будем в IDE Cursor. По факту это форк VS Code.
So we will be coding an IDE Cursor. And the only thing that's unusual about it is that it has access to neural networks. So you have on the right a chat. It looks like a chat GPT chat, but in fact you can interact with any GPT there. And it's all about code writing. So we will be using Gemini 2.5 Pro because it's a reasoning model.
Что-то видно вообще. Давайте побольше сделаю.
Can you even see anything there?
Так оставить или поменьше сделать? Отлично. Спасибо. Спасибо. Да, это будет...
Do you want it smaller? This will be legendary. This will be epic.
Недавно в курсор добавили возможность создавать свои режимы.
So they've added in Cursor the ability to create your own mode. So I've developed a vibe mode. So this is an agent which is allowed to do anything. And I'm using this prompt here that I'm effectively telling it that it's a very lazy but awesome vibe coder. So I will spend a minute now delivering the prompt verbally. I will be using Whisper here. So Whisper is going to transcribe my voice, speech to text. It's actually better to type it because, smart ideas have been chasing me, but my voice was faster as the joke goes. But to keep you entertained, I'll be using voice control here.
Вот. Так. Напиши расширение для Burp Suite на Python.
So please write down an extension for Burp Suite on Python. So I'm expecting syntaxes of Python 2, and you also need to delete all the cookies that do not got nothing to do with server response. So imagine that I send an API request. It contains lots of headers and cookies for metric selection, and it summons a plugin, something like the repeater, which triggers the context menu, and then plugin starts working. First, it sends the request twice to get the response from the server. Then it removes headers one by one to check if the response changes. If it changes, keep the header, otherwise remove it. At this stage, we should not process host and cookie headers. Afterwards, the plugin goes to cookies. And again, we do the same. Remove cookies one by one. And if the response changes after cookie deletion, keep it, otherwise delete it. Also add a login for plugin download, and also do error logging for future debugging. Also think hard and apply, the most laconic and elegant solution which requires as little coding as possible. Give me a detailed plan that even a junior can do, and then deploy it.
Моментально просто транскрибировался мой огромный промпт.
And you see, my very long prompt has just
чуть сложнее, чем русский.
so quickly, has very quickly been transcribed. So I want Jython here, not jitter. Cookie, I don't need to change the spelling here. It will know that it's cookies.
Самый верх, что у меня там?
At the very top, what was that?
Burp Suite. Ну да.
Burp Suite instead of Burp Suite. Maybe it's a Russian make.
Python 2. Проблема в том, что на Python...
Right, the problem with Python is that on Python, you are not allowed to use a Montoya, the new Burp Suite API. Moreover, Python is launched through Jython, which is a virtual machine on Java, but it's also expecting Python to syntax, which is particularly horrendous. So, while I'm pressing enter, I should tell you why I'm using such a detailed prompt. I believe that AI is a very polite junior developer who believes that he knows everything even if he doesn't and won't ever argue with me. So I want to give him very limited freedom in terms of generating the plugin. I don't want to give him freedom in terms of the algorithm. It's just in the way he's going to code it.
Пока он кодит, я бы вернулся к презентации.
While it's busy coding, I want to go back to my presentation.
Потому что он кодить будет где-то 5-7 минут.
Because it will take 5 to 7 minutes to code it, and just standing here in front of you for 5-7 minutes doing nothing is no fun. Can you please help me?
Это не то.
Oh, right.
Я попал в матрицу, я не понял об этом.
I'm sorry, I'm in the matrix. I didn't know.
Да. Вот. Короче, когда вы начинаете чатик с моделькой, у нее, совершенно...
So when you start your chat with a model, its context is empty. It knows nothing about your project, meaning that it's doing nothing. However, once I've pressed enter, my project, the model's knowledge of the project starts growing. I am telling it, you are a great Gemini agent. You know what you're doing. Then I'm adding cursor rules, agent prompt,
Что мы хотим сделать?
intention prompt, about, what it is that I want to do.
Моделька сама.
Documentation, which I forgot to tag, well, the model will sort it out, I guess.
Вот собралась вся эта инструкционная контекст.
So after all this instruction context is there,
Все, что вы задаете модели, все
everything that you tell the model, all the questions and all the answers, they will be used to kind of augment it. So the more context you're giving, the poorer will the model remember what you previously told it. So we have the system prompt there, but as I'm showing, system prompt will be sort of forgotten. It doesn't really happen in real life, but it's good for visualization purposes. So we will be forgetting the context, or rather the model will be forgetting the context. That's why it is very important for a vibe coder to change your chats more often. Break down your task into subtasks and stick to the one chat per subtask rule. Now imagine that you've been working in some chat for a long time and got some important discussions there. Then you gotta
описывайте контекст так называемых cursor rules. По факту
describe the context in cursor rules. This is in fact static memory between the chats. So you can set up when it's gonna be used. For this particular report, I have developed a very simple rule on writing plugins for Burp. In fact, I just copied the instruction from Portswigger and I put it in the model. And this file has actually saved AI 30 hours of debugging. I can bet a farm that, Gemini Pro trained data doesn't contain outdated Burp instructions. It would be like, well, why doesn't it work? It should. I'm just giving it a crib sheet here. Now, what if you are lazy? You don't want to develop the rules on your own. So imagine you've been arguing with the model for 30 minutes and you have an idea about what your project is going to look like. Then you can do generate cursor rules and tell it the kind of rule you want to have. Like I've talked to the metalhead, and then I say, cursor, we've had this discussion. Please identify the key aspects of the new architecture and tell me how to avoid UI issues. And I previously spent like 4 hours arguing with it because I wouldn't understand what Burp Suite was.
Пора проверить, как там плагин.
Now it's time that we check the plugin.
Можно переключить на компьютер? О, спасибо. Да, это картинка, это... Сейчас.
Yay, that's a picture, for sure.
А что он сделал, собственно? О, он что-то накодил даже.
I see he has coded something. Header, cookies.
Что-то он здесь накодил, ну...
Okay, he has certainly done so. Am I a vibe coder to read it? Certainly not. I go straight to Burp. Because I actually believe it has done a good job.
Где у меня тут extensions? Заходим в extensions.
Okay, go to extensions.
Находим
Add.
Python.
I find Python.
Вызываем наш плагин, который я написал. Ну как?
I invoke the plugin.
Я же сказал, что надо писать.
Are you okay with me saying that I wrote it? I did tell it, write a plugin. So I'm at least the customer, if not the developer.
Нифига себе, даже загрузилось.
You see, it has even loaded something, surprisingly. Okay, I'll disconnect this, okay?
Вырубил компьютер. Что произошло?
Now what has happened now?
Да вайп-кодился.
Okay, this is where vibe coding gets you.
Да, реально, реально.
Yeah, it's...
Курсор, не убивай меня, пожалуйста. Я же добавлял, пожалуйста, во все промпты. За что ты...
I asked Cursor to be nice to me. I reminded Cursor that I was polite, and I added please in each and every prompt. I will be the first machines will kill off when they revolt.
Если бы я мог. О, оно есть, отлично.
Oh, it's there. See?
Запрос чистить. Мы будем чистить запрос
Okay.
стендофа.
We are going to clean our request to standoff API. You can actually try hijacking my account if you want. My recommendation. So you can see some metrics and some Macintosh and Firefox headers. Now, remember the prompt I used. So call out an extension. And you can see it actually has optimized header and cookies. Then nothing happens. How come? No, something's happening, see? Why is that? Look here. You can actually see it processing the headers and things changing. Cookies are changing. Can you imagine that?
Можно вайп-кодить и делать реальный код, и он будет работать.
So that means you can vibe code and your code will actually work.
Поэтому я теперь предлагаю вернуться.
That's insane.
Я скрыл от вас.
Now I suggest we go back to the presentation because I concealed a couple of techniques.
Раз мы выяснили о том, что нужно часто менять чаты.
Now we have seen that it's important to change the chats.
Когда мы начинаем новый чат, мы начинаем с...
And when we start a new chat, the context is empty. So how do we make sure that we have high-quality context? Because context is both the knowledge and the limitations regarding what the model knows and what it cannot do. And I believe that one of the best ways here is to consider how you can feed the manual to the model. Now, you can certainly use the built-in documentations for popular projects, what you can find in Cursor. I'm sorry that screen died on me. That's where vibe coding gets you. So how can I use the inbuilt documentation? So you just do the whirlpool sign, then you say docs, and you select the name of the library. But then there are a few libraries there, and I don't really know if they update them often. And Cursor seems to allow you to parse external libraries, although it doesn't do it properly. Alternatively, you can do context 7 MCP. These guys have collected lots of documents, lots of snippets from different libs, and they put them into flat text files. And they've got nearly 12,000 libraries there. That's crazy. So after you've produced this long prompt, which is like 300 lines long, you can tell your model, use context 7 MCP. It will decide on its own what kind of documentation it needs, what kind of code it needs to produce. Was that 0.2, 0.1? What kind of timer is that? In any case, guys, why wasn't this service good for the Burp plugin? Although you can potentially add external libraries there if the GitHub repo contains a markdown file. I don't think any of you has ever chucked the repository there. There is no documentation, there is just a Java file. So all you have there is Java docs generated on the basis of a Java file. So I turn to uithub.com, which is great for any files whatsoever. The way it works is that you grab a link to GitHub repository, you replace G with U, that gives you uithub, and then you go there, and you have a text file. It actually starts with the structure of the whole GitHub repository, and then it lists one by one the content of files, which is absolutely what you need for the LLM. Rather than traversing the GitHub repository and doing it on its own, you can just feed it this text file, and it masters it on its own. Beautiful, isn't it? What else can you do in order to augment your context? So you can do the add sign and then include pretty much any context for your project. You can include files, projects, folders, functions, and so on. Because like I said at the very beginning of the chat, the model knows nothing whatsoever about your project, not even the name.
И вы так можете сказать ей, где именно конкретно ей искать, вместо того, чтобы она...
So you can effectively tell the model where to look.
К примеру, здесь я
For example,
к своему плагину добавить...
I wanted to add to my plugin here
И тут
the user interface,
потом тегаю
and I say, please
чтобы моделька понимала, где плагин находится.
add to this extension a particular file, and I tag it.
Соответственно, правило о том, как
And
писать,
it comes from Burp Suite.
которое я уже показывал.
And then I provide the rule for writing Burp Suite plugin, so that the user can configure headers to ignore, max response differences, and so on. Please add a progress bar below. And then I add Burp Suite Extended Legacy API, where I have this flat file with Burp Suite API code.
Сбора точечного контекста. Это призвать MCP.
Also, I can summon MCP. Now, MCP is a protocol that enables you to link an AI agent to external data. This data can be even dynamic. It could be Burp Suite, it could be Figma, it could be a database or a browser, whatever.
Здесь я... Так, как его запустить? Вот. Я и агенту дал доступ к своему...
So, I've given AI agent access to my Burp Suite via MCP. So I'm saying, please open Burp Suite, please open the tab in Repeater, and take the cookie out of the current or the active request. And it actually does that.
Реально такие куки были, реально такой запрос был.
So if you have good memory, you will probably remember that we had exactly that.
Должен переключиться на Burp, где можно как раз увидеть, что ряд...
So in several seconds, I should be able to move to Burp, where I'm showing exactly that. It's indeed the same request. Rather than hallucinating the model, use the API to check the Burp Suite. Isn't that great?
Так качественно подходим к сбору...
Now that we are so serious about context collection, we got to choose the models properly as well.
Вот. Собственно, какая вторая...
Another great thing you can do is subscribe to my Telegram channel, by the way. Another tactic is that we should collect context diligently and thoroughly, because the quality of the context determines the quality of the output. And you also got to choose your model in a smart way. And the final tactic deals with surfing a large code base. Now, imagine you want to do a fork of my beautiful plugin, which seems to be working from the first go. Now, imagine you want to add a UI. So you go to GitHub repo, you grab it to your cursor. What do you do next? Are you really gonna read this sudo Java code, which runs a Jython, which is almost like Python, but it's also Python 2. So on Cursor, besides just generating code, you can ask about code. You can open Cursor chat. You can go to the ask mode, which doesn't corrupt the code. And then you can actually use the context, which you've pre-populated there. See the connection? Here, see, I've tagged the file of my plugin, and I say, I have this plugin, can you please explain what it does in 5 points? And the model says, sure, absolutely, this is what it does. And you can do this with anything, any function, any file, your whole project, though with a project will take longer. What else? Well, you can produce diagrams. Cursor has got this mermaid extension, which enables you to see text diagrams as pictures. You can effectively turn a code base into a cartoon, though it's a shitty cartoon. So, I can do the following, like do this, generate a consecutive representation, and it gives me this. Isn't that a miracle? Rather than getting a long piece of text from the model, like a Bible on what the plugin does, it shows everything in a sort of a flowchart, which is much easier to read. And like I said, you can do it pretty much everywhere. At Speaker Party yesterday, they invited me to turn it into SAST. If you do that and give me 5% of your sales revenue, I will be grateful. So, we can obviously draw diagrams or draw something else. This is it for the tactics, and this is the most important bit, how you can be a useful vibe coder rather than a laughingstock. So these are 5 commandments for vibe coders. Generate your code in parts. Do not refactor your project if it has got 16,000 lines, lots of components, proprietary or private elements. Do not give the model full control. It's not the model taking you places, it's you traveling through the roadmap of features. You're ultimately responsible. So vibe coding cannot be an excuse for shoddy work. After that, do your code review. Never say later. Later never comes. Explain the code to yourself in your own words. If you don't understand anything, ask the model. The model will explain. Based on that, move on. And there is no later. Later never comes. But vibe debugging happens much faster, and you won't like it. That's not something you want to repeat ever in your life.
Сильно помогает следовать test-driven development.
Test-driven development helps you immensely. First you do a test, then you deploy your feature. It's important that you understand what the test does. And then you tell the model, now generate a feature, now test it. And this is such a great way of protecting the model from a heap of dysfunctional code. That, however, requires that you put the YOLO mode on in Cursor. That allows the agent to launch commands, but it saves you a lot of time, though. It's not entirely safe. And use SAST. Is there anything else to it? All right, conclusions. Now let's summarize. How can you be a useful vibe coder rather than a laughingstock? So set your context right and start with the manual. It's best that you teach the model, RTFM. It's much better than telling the model that you cannot do that because the documentation doesn't provide for that for 3 hours. So use UIT Hub. Also go for short chats, task into subtasks, one chat per subtask. Have dry rules. Write cursor rules as if your life depended on it. You will thank me later. Vibe code mindfully. Do not release control over your code. Like I said, vibe coding is no excuse for shoddy work. Like, if bad code comes from you, you cannot really blame the LLM. That's your fault. If you don't understand something, it's like in real life. Ask a question. If you don't understand the answer, or if you feel like watching cartoons, you ask Cursor to produce a cartoon or a diagram. And the final one is patch in small bits. Do not try to refactor everything in one go. This is your junior in a pocket. You gotta control it, and he will work for you. Review there, test, do SAST in the background. These were great 15 minutes where I tried to pack 2 hours of content. So all prompts, all rules, all the little nuances. Like, there were also 30 minutes of the presentation I simply could not fit in. All this will be in my Telegram channel, so please subscribe and like my content. Thank you very much. Yes. What goes afterwards is a slide that says, thank you for the vibe. I just want the QR code to be here, okay? And this is such a great way to crown our AI track. Thank you very much for waking everybody up and improving our vibe. Had we known what this presentation could be, we would have invited you for the 1 hour long pause in the middle of the day. Let me share a story here. While you were delivering your presentation, I was sending this message to my friends that, this person is delivering a great presentation about vibe coding. And a person from Kaspersky tells me, does he have a presentation on vibe reversing or maybe vibe pen testing? On such a great note, I suggest we finalize. Like we promised, we do not entertain questions in the fast track. So let's thank Artyom again.